Good afternoon, my name is Michael Gibbons. I'm a disabled, retired New York State Code officer. I worked for the Office of Code Administration for approximately 20 years. As a code officer, I was proud to be in the union with a president like Dennis Quirk. I was in one of the best civil service titles there was in the city and state, and with a powerful union president, I only heard positive things about this job and everything else. I had no idea that the union was run by only one man, where there's no triannual elections, where he's consistently nominated every 3 years by his own executive board. There's no ballots sent out. The year 2009, a fraudulent charge was levied against me, placed by allegedly an anonymous phone call to the Inspector General's office stating that I removed my firearm and pointed it at another court officer. Now, there's no eyewitnesses. Nobody stated that ever happened. The Inspector General's office interviewed 5 court officers that stated they saw nothing. But I was transferred to Kings County from Queens County as a reprimand, and my firearm privileges were removed while they investigated. I had to constantly keep staying in touch with the union and its executive board as to find out what's going on in my case. Why am I being investigated? If it's an anonymous call, if it was an anonymous phone call, why are charges even being considered? You know, it's ridiculous.
And they never gave you an answer.
They said, well, you know, no matter what, it always gets investigated. Every anonymous claim gets investigated, and when they investigated, when they interviewed these officers, nothing came out of it. Everybody said they didn't see a damn thing, because nothing did happen. And these guys that got interviewed totally contradicted what I was being charged with. They said they didn't see anything, nothing happened. After the investigation, nobody said a thing. Other state court officers said we didn't see a thing. Nobody pointed the firearm at anything. The other officer who allegedly said I had pointed my firearm at, he even said to the academy staff when we were sent for retraining that no, it didn't happen. There was never a firearm pointed in my direction. This is old Dennis Quirk. And not only that, see, there's a big ploy in all this. This officer had legal action against Mr. Quirk beforehand. This officer has a whole other, legal action against the Office of Court Administration and Dennis Quirk himself. So Dennis Quirk said, let me get this guy for filing a lawsuit against me, and I was used as a pawn. Oh, well, we'll say this guy pointed his firearm at this officer just so I can make their lives a little inconvenient. Pick them up, transfer them, remove their firearm privileges, and cut their salary.
Why you?
Because in 2006, he had a very bad falling out with his first vice president. His first vice president and I happened to be acquaintances from a neighborhood called Middle Village in Queens County. And that's the only reason I could think of. He had a bad falling out with the vice president. I knew the vice president from the neighborhood, and he selectively targeted me. I was hired on this job with the condition of Crohn's disease. They knew I had Crohn's disease. Due to the stress of the Office of Court Administration and my own union president selectively persecuting me, and the long commute that I had to go, from Comac to Brooklyn every day, it was breaking my body down because of my illnesses. I had terminal liver disease, which is PSC. I had, at the time, I had cancer of the large intestine, which had to be removed because of Crohn's disease caused it. And now I suffer from rectal cancer. But back then, my body was breaking down. My immune system was breaking down, and I was asking for transfers repeatedly. Could not show up to work anymore. I just physically couldn't do it. I was that ill. So I requested what they call sick leave bank, which means you get paid your salary while you're at home healing, and I was denied. Even though everybody's required to contribute their own hours to the sick leave bank for other brother and sister officers. When I applied for it, I was denied. For no explanation, no reason, I just got a letter in the mail, please be advised, your request for sick leave credits has been denied. Eventually, they approved me, but at half pay. No one ever gets sick bank for half pay. Everybody always gets everybody always gets full pay. I was approved for half pay, and the night before I was due to go to a dental appointment, while I was still on payroll, receiving sick bank, I'm still on payroll, I'm still an active employee, my dental benefits were canceled, which come through the union. This guy just arbitrarily cancels benefits, vision and dental, whenever he wants. If he doesn't like you, you have no benefits. Even when court officers retire, their benefits come from the union. If there's no standard set guidelines. If he likes you, you get benefits. If he doesn't like you, you don't get lifelong benefits. That's just the way it is. It all could have been avoided if I was just simply accommodated as mandated by the Americans with Federal Disabilities. And they violated federal laws by not accommodating a disabled person. Because I had the first surgery, the cancer returned that June or July. I had to go in for a second surgery because the cancer created a large tumor, a large hernia, I'm sorry, not a tumor, a large hernia, because the cancer was pushing against it, and it created what they call ascites, which is liver liquid when the liver comes to a defensive mode. And it looked like a bird's beak. I was out to here. I had to have that surgery taken care of, and a little more cancer was removed. And then I had to have another surgery on October 1st of 2015 to reverse it. Like I had the colectomy bag, if anybody knows what that is. That's where your large intestine comes out your stomach now. And they had to reverse everything and reconnect it to my anal cavity. The feelings of being slighted and having no representation, I had no choice but to seek my own counsel just to protect myself, because my own union president was selectively targeting me, and he was instructing the Office of Court Administration not to accommodate me, not to help me, to make it actually worse. During all of this time, many court officers submitted transfer requests years after me were getting their transfers coming through, were being transferred in front of my very eyes, and I was being held in Brooklyn. When my attorney reached out to the Office of Court Administration, he told me he actually got into a shouting match with the Human Resources Executive, Lauren DeSole, about why you people don't understand. You're breaking Americans with Disabilities Act, federal laws. You're breaking these laws. And she was arguing back and forth with him about it. Well, the one thing I have on my side is the truth, and they know it. The bylaws are not updated. There's nothing in the bylaws that state how to file a grievance against your own union if you feel you're being mistreated. There's so many conflict of interests against the American Federation of Labor that it's really not a union. I'm being illegally denied this. There was such stress on me, I guess, my body gave out. I had to go into surgery because cancer developed in my large intestine, and the large intestine had to be removed, or I wouldn't be talking to you right now. So that surgery was performed in January of 2015, and when that surgery was performed, they cut me loose with a disability pension, a 33% disability pension. Right, I didn't complete my full time. I didn't do my 30 years of time, which I totally would have done my 30 years of time had I been accommodated and transferred back closer to home. I wouldn't have become as ill as I was. After my pictures went online, somebody saw the pictures, and I was given a disability pension.
How soon after?
2 days. One day, I think. Surgery was January 13th, and I was officially retired January 14th. So somebody said, "Get this guy out of here. He really is sick. We don't want this baggage." When it comes to court officers, Dennis W. Quirk runs the entire show. It's not really a union. It's one man running the entire. It's like a corporation, and he's the CEO. It's one man running the entire corporation. He established it back in 1974. There's no triannual elections. There's no ballots that get mailed out. There's no one that ever runs against him. A court officer from Staten Island tried to put a kink in the system, in his system, and run against him, create ballots and make it triannual elections. And this guy had his life ruined, of course. He was sent from Staten Island to Queens County Criminal Court, Night Court, which we call the lobster shift. Dennis Quirk extended his commute by 70 miles or 50 miles, whatever it is.
A day?
A day, for even daring to come up against him.
Dennis Quirk has a history of other misdealings and allegations of misconduct, right? Are there other cases you've heard throughout the years in his history where he's been less than reputable?
Oh, well, I know what happened back in Howard Beach in 1986, the Howard Beach case. How he, unfortunately, was a court officer that struck the man, Michael Griffith, on the Bell Parkway when he was being chased by a mob from New Park Pizza. A court officer, an off-duty court officer, was driving the car that struck him. Dennis Quirk took the car, which bears plenty of physical evidence to a case like this, and hid the car in his garage for 2 weeks. It says so in black and white in the Daily News. The article is dated August 3rd, 2003. August 10th, 2003. Now, if that's
why do you think there was no follow-up from the police? Why do you think?
Oh, because he's extremely politically connected.
And who was the DA at the time?
Charles Hines, of course, Brooklyn District Attorney.
So you're telling me he held the car for 3 weeks and then he turned it over to Charles Hines?
That's the story.
So the guy that he was sponsoring in the campaign, in these campaigns, was the same guy that he was prosecuted against, and no action was taken.
Right. The corruption that goes along with this man in this union is unfathomable. The federal government needs to get involved and investigate this so-called union. The federal government needs to get into those offices at 321 Broadway and see how corrupt this place is. I hope this story brings a federal investigation of this union, and it gets totally overhauled, and it turns into a legitimized union where there's triannual elections and and there's stand-up union officers and people that can compete for each other for the titles, and that the people that that don't honor federal guidelines like Americans with Disabilities Acts and guys that systematically and selectively persecute other officers, guys like Dennis Cork should be imprisoned. That's all I seek is justice.